Welcome to my ultimate Tactician Cavalry guide for Age of Empires Mobile in 2026, where I will be going over, as you guessed it, all of the Tactician Cavalry from the beginning of the game to the current state right now, and tell you the differences between Hannibal as well as Bellisarius, so you can see which one might be suited to your playstyle. Even going into the supports, Justinian and Demolish, and even giving you some early bird love with Cleopatra coming at you as a substitute for any of the formations that we're going to be discussing in today's video that you can see as a quick preview on screen. So with all of that, smash a like, comment, and subscribe. And just to remind you all, don't worry, I will be going over adornments, signet rings, gems, everything that you're going to need for all of the heroes that we're going to be discussing in today's video. So with that, let's begin with the very first thing, the two commanders, Hannibal and Bellisarius, because everyone will tell you both commanders are actually fantastic, but for different reasons, and that's what many people get caught out for. So if we look at our good friend Hannibal, his skill and his playstyle is secondary strike skills, just like Bellisarius. However, he's all about trying to make the enemy commander weaker. The way he does this is by targeting them and increasing his own heroes' might, armor, and strategy, which is really good. But with his secondary strike, he's actually reducing the enemy's commander's strategy as well as might. This is obviously scaling up with strategy bonus and might bonus, which is fantastic. But what this is inevitably doing is trying to make that march a little bit weaker, so your other formations or even your allies can come in and help destroy that player much easier. So that's the one thing with Hannibal. Just to remind you, he is dealing damage, which is okay, but his main role is actually this control role and bringing this utility of attribute stealing to yourself. When we compare this to Bellisarius here on the right, he is the complete opposite. He is all about trying to do as much damage as possible. The way he does this is pretty simple. His main skill is increasing his secondary strike chance, which is nice, while doing a fan-shaped AOE for 350%, but his signature skill, a secondary strike skill, just like Hannibal, deals damage, but every 2 activations of this skill is going to trigger one of your customizable skills that you've got equipped. This is really important because depending on how far you are with your Bellisarius, you can run 2 builds, which I am going to discuss more in depth when we hit him on the formation screen. The one thing that you need to know is if you're running the Signet Ring Radiant Guardian, you do not need double attack. However, if you do not own a Radiant Guardian, you're gonna need to run a double attack. The reason is, from his signature skill, you obviously want as many attacks as possible. So entering the double attack state is just basically doubling up the chances of either firing off Conquering Iron Hoof, which is gonna increase its stacks exponentially up to 40% maximum when you get all 4 stacks online, or if you do have that Radiant Guardian run, you're going to run Crushing Impact. That's going to allow you to now reduce the enemy's stats and even further give an advantage in your side. So as you can see, Bellisarius, compared to our friend Hannibal, is all about dealing damage. And I need to make that clear because both of these commanders are free. You can get them on the Legendary Advent Wheel. Just save up some of your Empire coins that you earn weekly from being in maybe the #1 alliance or from events that you've earned in-game, and you're going to be able to spin these. Spin it 20 times and you're guaranteed a unlock. So this is the big thing with these formations. Next, we've got Justinian and Demolish. These 2 heroes honestly are really good too because they support heroes that different players can get. Justinian is from Season 1 and in the Mightiest Governor event, and you can keep earning him in the Mightiest Governor event if needed to, but Demolish is later on in around Season 5, I believe, or Season 6, which is Legendary Advent Wheel, meaning she's completely free to earn as well. Just play the game, earn some Empire coins, and spin her. The difference is between these commanders is quite drastic. I would say out of both of the commanders, Demolish is the better choice. So when you are running Justinian, you don't need to 5-star him instantly because you're going to be trying to use those same medals to 5-star your demolish instead. The way demolish works is pretty unique and absolutely cool compared to some of the other heroes in the game. She's going to be recovering units like any support will do and try to keep you alive. However, she also increases the strategy and might of your other 2 heroes by an amount equal to the percentage of demolish's corresponding base attributes. This stacks up to 3 times, and that is phenomenal. So basically what it says is these stats here, the might and the strategy there, is going to be applied to either one of your formations. And just to showcase one of these formations, it could go onto your Bellisarius, or it could go for your Ashoka. So you can see that is a very powerful ability to have, because as many people know, in Age of Empires Mobile, the higher attributes that you have, the more damage you deal. Technically, the higher strategy you have, the less damage you take. So it's a very important thing to have when it comes to demolish. So this is one of the main differences between these 2 heroes. Justinian is similar as a support, but doesn't provide stats. What he provides is unmatched tanking, and I mean that. Out of the 2 heroes, he is a better tank, but he doesn't actually support your other 2 DPSs to allow you to kill enemies faster. He is still fantastic, like I said, from Season 1, but demolish will overtake him. This is because when you read his skill, recover your troops and reduce troop damage taken for 1 second when any of your heroes in your troop activates a secondary strike skill. And what we're going to be doing with him is trying to help that trigger, but as you guessed it, with Bellisarius and Hannibal, this is going to allow them to keep firing off their skills, and every time they're firing off those skills, they get additional bank, which is recovery and damage reduction, and this is only at 1 stars. When you look at this hero, especially when it gets into the 3-star range, the actual damage reduction is increased by 5%. So it's a very good amount of damage reduction that you're aiming to get from this early on. And even if you did 5-star this hero, it increases that 1 second to 2 seconds, which is, again, super powerful consistency when it comes to trying to keep your march alive. Now, the last hero that we got to talk about is Cleopatra, which is going to be one of those heroes that probably catches a lot of you guys off, but I have started to fall in love with this early game hero. Why? She's one hero in the game for for Tactician Swordsman and Tactician Cavalry there to be a void, like be a substitute hero. What I mean by that is, you can run a Cleopatra with a Hannibal and maybe with a demolish, or maybe with an Ashoka, right? Maybe you just don't own certain heroes and you are just needing 1 slot filled until you get there. Cleopatra is actually one of the best ones on doing that. Why? She's actually doing something for your main commander too, very similar to demolish. After launching a normal attack, which is a second strike skill now, deal strategy damage, but you increase your commander's might and strategy, and it's a lot of points. This is 91.8 points for 6 seconds in the early phase. This amount of attributes, you will realize, absolutely blows people up, and many people will tell you in my comment section down below, even if you're a Sun Tzu player, this hero is fantastic for Tactician Swordsman. So for Cavalry, she is a very, very good early game pickup. So I just want to make that clear. If you don't own any of these heroes, you're just looking for someone to fulfill that slot until you get there, Cleopatra is actually something that you should be coming at yourself, because she's that good. So now we kind of understand these 2 main heroes that we've got. There's one hero that I haven't talked about in the game that many people love. I like him too, but I wouldn't recommend going all in for this hero right now. That is going to be William the Conqueror. This hero is very cool, very unique compared to any of the other Tactician Cavalry that you're going to see. The way he works is a turn-based skill, meaning every 6 seconds, this skill is going to fire off. And what he does is he marks your signature skills of your heroes in your formation with different types. As you can see, he's got turn-based. If you pair him up with a Hannibal or a Bellisarius, that's going to be your second strike skill. And if you put a Shocker in there, or guessing Justinian, you've got passive. So you got 3 different types of coverage, and that means now with those skills marked, you reduce damage taken, from them, which is really cool. And if you go against the hero that deals that type of damage, just for example, Lubu, and he hits your march, well, Lubu's secondary strike skill is going to boost up your Bellisarius's secondary strike skill, which is very, very cool when it works, right? The issue is, it's when it works, as I said. And William the Conqueror, even I think, is a very cool hero, and maybe in the future, this might be a hero that people will go back and try to unlock through a future Mightiest Governor event, does need some better components in order to make him work. At the moment, you're putting a lot of effort into William the Conqueror to make this formation go absolutely crazy, and it tends to be just not as efficient compared to just running any of the other formations that I'm going to be suggesting in today's video. So now we kind of know that with William the Conqueror, I'm going to say sorry to him. I apologize. If you've got any questions on William, put them down in the comment. I'll be happy to answer them to you guys. So let's talk about the very first actual season and the main lineup you're going to be able to use. This is going to be Hannibal, Ashoka, and Justinian. These heroes are all from the early game, and this is your main bread and butter utility march. As you can see with Hannibal, I've got that double attack and crushing impact, and just as a word of warning, if you own a Radiant Guardian, you can remove that double attack and run a weak spot attack. This is because when it comes to that formation, you're going to need to make sure you're in the double attack state to reduce the enemy's might through the crushing impact, as well as his own signature skill. This is an absolute stat drainer, and it's disgusting to go against. When it comes to these rings, I do like Radiant Guardian, but if you don't want to run that, the Ring of the Crow is even more doubling down on that same option. This is just because the Ring of the Crow steals the main stats of the commander too. So if you want to make sure that commander has no stats, this is one of the ways to do it. And the thing is, by doing it in this way, you and your formations that you're running, you and your allies that might be fighting in that PvP, is going to have a much easier time killing the target when they've got no stats, because that means they're not dealing as much damage, so they're getting worse trades on their end, and they're going to be taking more damage, right? Which is really, really cool. So with this, that's Hannibal covered. Ashoka is the next hero in this lineup that we've not talked about so far. Ashoka, in my eyes, is one of the main key components you have to have when it comes to your Tactician Cavalry. This is just because he provides something that no other actually provides, which is complete control immunity. Yes, you heard right. We have a 50% chance to enter the control immunity state for 3 seconds, meaning you can't be burnt, you can't be stunned, you can't be routed, you couldn't even be silenced. Nothing can affect you because you are CC immune, which is amazing. On top of this, as you can see, as a passive base skill, you increase your commander's signature secondary strike skill activation chance by 4%, which is going to scale off his might and strategy, which is very cool because out of all of the Tactician Cavalry, Ashoka is the only commander out of all of them that has a main stat of might, but his strategy stat is almost as equal on there, meaning when it comes to gems, as a mini spoiler, running all attributes is actually a really good way of taking this to that next level and maximizing on those bonuses. With this as well, you got to remember, you're also increasing the damage dealt by your commander of secondary strike skill damage by an extra 20%. And this is, again, only a 1-star Ashoka. When you start to upgrade this hero, he goes absolutely crazy. Now you have an 85% chance of going into the immune state for CC. At 5 stars, increase the activation chance of your commander's signature skill by an additional 2%, which doesn't sound like much, but it does add up. This is 6%. And when you combine that to a Hannibal, just for example, that means you've got a 31% chance of firing off. That is nearly a 1 in 3. That is a very high uptime compared to a 1 in 4. So it's very cool to see, and this is why we need a shocker in this lineup. For his skills, I'm going to recommend Roar of Victory as well as Act of Mercy. This is just so you can generate as much rage to help that Hannibal steal even more through his main commander skill, and at the same time, when the units are slowly dying, the Act of Mercy is going to help punch through and kill the enemies. Justinian, as we talked about, is the king of the early game tanking, so he is what you're going to be using. Justinian is going to run War Tactic as well as Peaceful Haven, just to reduce as much damage as possible, and with War Tactic, have a really cool synergy with himself. Just remember, when it comes to this hero, anytime any hero in the troop deals a second strike skill, it triggers his own passive. So War Tactic, being a second strike skill, allows him to actually trigger his own skill even if any of the other heroes do not go off. So this is a really good way to sustain, a really good way to keep yourself alive, and a really good way for Justinian to be a super tank. When it comes to the rings here, when it comes to a shocker, I honestly do like Ring of the Serpent, Lofty Mountain, or Tranquil Water. The best in slot many people would suggest is either Lofty Mountain or Ring of the Serpent, due to the amount of stats that you're either injecting onto a shocker through the Ring of the Serpent, or the amount of stats you're injecting through the commander boosts of your Lofty Mountain. Tranquil Water is a very safe option if you've got access to it. As you can see, this is just going to make it so you reduce as much damage as possible. Justinian is very similar to as we've seen in the past. He's going to be running Lofty Mountain, Radiant Thunder, or even any of the defensive rings like Ring of the Falcon. Your job as Justinian is to try to maximize the amount of damage reduction that you have, the amount of survivability that you have, or to try and boost that Hannibal, and that is why you're able to do it. I am going to put this on a very low obtainability of 7 at the moment, just because you do need to get some Mightiest Governor heroes, being a Shocker and Justinian, while early game Hannibal is your main pick. If you do miss out on Hannibal, just as a little tip here that many people will ask, you can try to earn him through the Heroic Expedition. Later on in the game, the Heroic Expedition changes and opens up a hero pool that allows you to try and get heroes from Season 1, then later on into Season 2, and as you guessed it, Season 3, and goes on. So the fact that you might miss Hannibal and you kind of want him, don't worry, you're going to be able to try and earn him again if you choose to. Now, moving on to the next one, this is going to be, as you've guessed it, the exact same lineup, but with Bellisarius. And the thing is with Bellisarius, again, you can run a good old steal Ring of the Crow just to steal some stats to help him out, but I would recommend the best in slot ring for Bellisarius is Radiant Guardian. It allows you to play the most DPS heavy build with Crushing Impact as well as Conquering Iron Hoof, which is going to allow you to stack up to 40% extra damage on that Conquering Iron Hoof and give more uptime on Crushing Impact, reducing might and strategy of the opponents that you're fighting, which is huge in damage trades. A Shocker and Justinian work the exact same, and they're here for the exact same reasons as the last setup with Hannibal in. So this is why it's really cool, because if you start with Tactician Cavalry, you'll notice that you can honestly play a variety of different playstyles if you want to go down a more control route, or if you want to go down a more DPS route. Now, with this, we're going into the later stages. This is where we get Bellisarius, Dae and a Shocker. And I do think this is one of the better setups that you can be running in the game right now for your Tactician Cavalry. That's just because it's super easy to get online with Bellisarius and Dae both through the Legendary Advent Wheel, and then a Shocker being the only Mightiest Governor event hero that you could have earned maybe later on in future seasons. The way this is working is very simple. Dae is trying to use her Peaceful Haven and Strengthening Fortification to boost up your Bellisarius' main damage output and even help a Shocker do some damage too, which is a really nice little combo that you've got here. The alternative formation that I would suggest running, and I've seen this ran, but I'm not fully sold on it, is Bellisarius, Dae and Hannibal. The reason why this match works is pretty simple. You're trying to do as much damage as possible while still being a utility bot for your team. So your Dae is going to give you all of the stats for both your Hannibal and for your Bellisarius. So when we look at that, it kind of makes sense. The issue is, because of Bellisarius, you're gonna need to run that Radiant Guardian on him, meaning you're not gonna have a Radiant Guardian on Hannibal. This means you're gonna run a good old weak double attack as well as weak spot attack on Hannibal to deal damage, and his signature skill will just naturally do what it needs to do. Ring of the Crow would be a very good option here. Radiant Thunder, a really good option here, or even going into Tranquil Water or Lofty Mountain. Any of the main 4 rings that could be a supportive ring toward your Bellisarius would be equipped to your Hannibal in this situation. And like I said, Dae will be there to boost both of them up. So now we kind of understand what the different matches are and what those skills are. You can go back if you want and check them out. But let's actually break down some of the nitty-gritty stuff. Like I said, the rings. Signet rings for your Tactician Cavalry are very cool because you can actually go down a variety of different routes right now in game. Tranquil Water, one of the cheaper 1600 rings that you can get, is just the king of damage reductions. If you put this on your march, you know you're going to not take as much damage as other people will. Lofty Mountain, though, is going to boost up the commander's damage. And having this ring is very good because you can have this equipped to your Justinian, your Ashoka, your Dae technically the Hannibal in that other last setup, in order to boost up that Bellisarius' damage output. Because again, when it comes to both of the heroes, Bellisarius here is doing the most amount of damage out of any of them. It doesn't matter. And maybe in the future, there might be a better Tactician Cavalry unit that might match our good friend Bellisarius. But as of now, that is not the case. So, because we're able to steroid him up, this is a really good ring for that. Another good ring is Swirling Tempest. I know it's going to catch a lot of people off guard, but when entering battle, you reduce critical strike, which is really, really good. But also, after entering battle, reduce your troop damage taken and increase your strategy damage of all heroes in your troop. Yes, you heard right. This is not a skill-specific ring. You're able to reduce crits, meaning you're more effective against a Lubu, or even going against players that are running Scipio in swordsman marches. And on top of this now, you're boosting up your damage and getting a damage reduction for the main type that you run. So Swirling Tempest, even though it's a brand new ring, is a fantastic ring that you could be running for this match too, I would believe. Ring of the Falcon is more of a early game epic ring that if you want to use this instead, you can use this. It's increasing your healing effectiveness. So I would equip the Ring of the Falcon on heroes like Dae and Justinian as examples. When we go to the others, we have Ring of the Lion. This could be an early game ring again. You could put this on heroes like your Ashoka if you don't have the Ring of the Serpent, or if you're using a Ring of the Serpent elsewhere. This is going to help your Ashoka because it's going to give you might and strategy, and that's going to boost up both of those bonuses, which is boosting up all of his secondary strike skills, which is fantastic. Ring of the Serpent, again, fantastic ring. One of my big friends, Caiaphas from the Will Insight series, recommended the Ring of the Serpent to be put onto Ashoka and said once many people try this, everyone's going to be using this and never going back because you're gaining a bunch of strategy, but it's working off your might bonus. And as we explained earlier on with Ashoka, he has both of these. So we have 352 might, 314 strategy. So all of this super might that we've got is now boosting up that strategy. So it's just even more value on value, which is just an outrageous thing to have for an epic ring. So Ring of the Serpent is something that I would not sleep on either for you. When it comes to another ring, Ring of the Deer, I actually do like this. I like this on your Dae I like this technically if you do choose to run a William. I like it on William. I even like it on Justinian because these are the heroes that need to equip this so they can either boost your Bellisarius, your Hannibal, or your Ashoka up. And that's what you're trying to do. Boost up one of those two heroes to help them do damage. This also comes with base commander damage and troop damage reduction, two of the best stats in the game as a passive. And when this is maxed out all the way up to level 40, it's a 22% damage reduction on a random enemy hero, but it's increasing one of your heroes by a 22% as well. That's a 44% tempo swing, a big differential in combat, which I think is fantastic. As we mentioned, Radiant Thunder should be equipped on any of those heroes. Why? After a normal attack, you deal strategy damage to the enemy troop, which is great, but you also increase the activation chance of your commander's signature secondary strike skills by 1%. And the more you obviously upgrade this, the more that is going up. So even at level 1450 here, 211% damage, but it's a 3.78%. Remember what we talked about earlier on with our Hannibal. Hannibal had a 25% activation chance. And just with one hero, we got that up to 31%. Now, with your Radiant Thunder online, you're going to be pushing that up to 35%, and even higher in certain cases if you get the ring fully maxed out. So this is why I really want to stress out the Signet rings and talk about them, because there is quite a lot to deep dive in there. One other rings that you could run, just for example, Siege of Judgment is a good defensive ring as well that you can be going in there for your formation. So any of these rings that are defensive, like the Siege of Judgment, is fantastic. Anyone who wants to ask about Celestial Spark, I'm going to tell you no, just because this is a might-based defensive ring. Make sure when we're talking about defensive rings, they're for the damage type that you're going to be using, which is going to be strategy. So now we've kind of gone through the Signet rings and what we need to go through. Let's just talk about simply the gems, because the gems are quite easy to go through. When it comes to your helmets, no matter what, your helmet gems as you've got here, right? I would always recommend either unit capacity or unit health. Having unit capacity or unit health is going to make sure that every commander who has this equipped basically is increasing your survivability or your damage output by scaling your troop amount. If you didn't know, troop capacity is a direct correlation to how much damage you deal. So if you have 100,000 units compared to 200,000 units, as you guessed it, you're going to be doing double the damage each turn. So it's very important to have high unit cap as well as having high unit health in order to survive. So what I would try to do is have unit capacity only on one hero, and on the other two heroes, I would have full unit health. So when it comes into this, as an example, I would go into this lineup right here. Bellisarius would have unit capacity on his helmet. Daeyangyam and Ashoka, full unit health, right? So we've got capacity and health covered. Now, with that said, let's go on to the next piece, which is going to be your arms. Your arms are always going to be your main stats, and every single hero, apart from one, is always going to use strategy. This is just because, again, when you go to any of these commanders' skills, you can see this is going to use damage rate, might bonus here, but also strategy bonus. And when we go into their main skills, strategy is generally the main one for the main commanders. It's only going to be your shocker that has the might and the strategy for that, right? And his main stat might. So because of that, when it comes to your heroes, gems, we're going to be wanting this to be all strategy for every single hero. When it comes to a shocker, we only want all unit type strategy gems, right? We want all type. So what that means is if we go over to all attributes, you're going to be able to get armor, strategy, and might. When it comes to your chest piece is always down to what type of stuff that you do. So when it comes to Bellisarius, when it comes to Hannibal, when it comes to your Ashoka, I would recommend using Hero Secondary Strike Skill, because that's what you do. Secondary Strike Skill damage, increase that one mainly up. Then for everyone else, so your Justinian, for your Daeyangyam, and technically if you wanted to for Cleopatra, but I wouldn't worry about her, it's going to be Hero Recovery. You want to try and make it so you can survive out there. The legs, as you've guessed, is going to be one of the gems that I've talked about. So depending on what formation that you're running, so if you go back to a Bellisarius, Daeyangyam, and Ashoka, and you've got the boots for Daeyangyam, you're going to be running a unit health in the first slot. You're going to run strategy in the second slot with hero recovery in that third slot. If you compare that to Ashoka's boots, he's going to have all attributes in one of his gems. He's going to have secondary strike damage in one of the other gems, and he's going to have unit health as well. So hopefully I've explained that well enough, and I do apologize for some of the stutters. I'm still not 100%, as you guys have guessed it, but hey, we got to keep pushing through. So with that now, let's dive into the next part, which is going to be the finale area, which is the mounts and, as you guessed, the adornments for them. So when it comes to the mounts, you're going to be looking for pretty much your secondary strike skill damage for strategy. So if we scroll down here, I believe it is called Gallant. So if we go over to Gallant here and hit confirm, this is that's the might version, because there's two. So if it's not that one, we are going to go on to stratagem. There we are. Same exact skill, but instead it's strategy damage. So we're going to try and increase that as much as possible for our Shocker, for our Hannibal, and as you guessed it, for our Bellisarius. So any of the guys that are dealing secondary strike damage, you're going to want stratagem on them. For their other traits, if you're looking for a second or third trait, I would look at universal ones. Army Sunder is going to increase all damage types. Even Bedrock is reducing all damage taken. If you're a cavalry unit and you kind of want to make sure you're not dying to the passive guys, you can even go for reduced passive damage as well. Either one is going to be fantastic for your main traits. When it comes to your Justinian, when it comes to your your Justinian and your Deyang Yum, you're going to be using skills, right? Renewal and Lifesaver. These are going to give you more damage reduction anytime that hero heals. And as you've seen, Justinian heals quite a lot, because anytime your heroes do a second strike skill, he triggers, and every time our good old recovery goes off from our Deyang Yum, it's just going to go off, right? So either way, we're good. So Lifesaver, one of the main ones to go for. Renewal or healing armor is really good. As you've guessed, this is going to obviously increase the healing effectiveness. I would aim for renewal, only because renewal is increasing the individual hero and not the entire troop. This is very important because when you notice in any of the formations that we've talked about, we're only running one support, and that one support is only the person healing, none of the others. So having renewal is much more beneficial for a single support hero, while healing armor is much more better for a double support formation, to make that clear. So now we've gone through that, let's go into our good old adornments, right? Because we have a bunch of adornments that we can have in game. So when we go to Adornment Workshop, make sure when it comes to your main DPS, you're going to be using the Unyielding Iron. So that means for your Bellisarius, for your Hannibal, and even in some cases, if you want to, a Shocker as well, you can run Unyielding Iron. This is going to increase their attack and health, and more importantly, the hero's skill damage. That means they're going to do more. So as you've guessed it now, for your Justinian, Deyang Yum, Cleopatra, and even technically if you did want to try it on a Shocker 2, you're going to be running Sacred Lily. This is just so you can get more defense, more health, and actually get troop damage taken reduction, so you can actually survive the hits when you're out there in the open field. When it comes to the special effects, you can actually ignore quite a lot of these, as you probably guessed. You don't need Boiling Blood because you're not doing critical strikes. Lone Valor, after entering battle, there's only one target in combat. We kind of don't like that because it's kind of bad in our butts. Rally, after the mounted hero launches 12 normal attacks, you reduce their skill damage by 15% and increase other heroes' skill damage in the troop by 4.1% up to 7. I actually like Rally on heroes like Deyang Yum and technically Justinian, because they're not dealing any damage, so they can actually fire off 12 normal attacks over time, and when they do, guess what? You're boosting up your main heroes, which I actually quite like. Also, after the mounted hero activates 3 customizable secondary strike or active skills, you increase the next hero skill damage. This Chainslayer isn't actually too bad. You can put this on maybe your Bellisarius and the Hannibal formation, since as you probably guessed it, if you put it on Hannibal first, it's going to boost up your Bellisarius damage. If you put it on Bellisarius first, it's going to boost up your Hannibal damage. So it's a nice little flip on, but I wouldn't go too hard on it. Also, you can technically equip this as well onto the supports. So if you want to equip this onto Daeyang Yum, Justinian, this is still a fantastic one for them instead of Rally, because as you guessed it, you're going to be able to boost up your next main DPS one. Resistance, though, I would recommend on most of your actual adornments. Having 2 resistances in this lineup is very powerful because you're going to reduce instances of skill damage reduction by 15% each. You got to think, if you've got 2 of these on, that's nearly 30%. It's a lot of damage reduction. And then after that, you're still reducing basically 10%, going up to 4.9. So that's a 20% and then a 10% over the long period of fight. And as anyone will tell you, resistance is one of the best adornments in the game, and it's only at a 12% chance. So if you pick it up, you don't need to be mad. You can equip this onto 2 of the heroes and you're going to be fine. When you look at anything else like Blood Rage, we're not too bothered about this because it's only a one-time effect, and we're not too bothered about commander skills. Intimidation is in the same thing, only 1 target combat. I'm not a big fan of these type of ones because, as many people know, you're more likely to fight multiple units at once, and even in certain scenarios, you're going to get swarmed too. So you don't want to only affect one thing. It's just not good enough. Entanglement isn't too bad, but I don't like this for tacticians. It just basically lowers the movement speed of enemies. So if you really want to chase down enemies, entanglement is the way to go. But the way to actually do this is going down to victory. Every 9 seconds after entering battle, if the primary target, the troop commander, has lower strategy than the mounted hero, your commander's damage against the primary target increases by 22% for 3 seconds. Victory is a very, very powerful adornment, and in my eyes is the first or second best adornment you could be running. Why? Well, you got to remember, Hannibal here is going to be stealing your stats. His commander skill is stealing your stats. If you've got the Ring of the Crow, we're stealing stats. If you're going down even the lineup with Bellisarius and Hannibal, we're doing the exact same thing. And when we're going into any of the other areas, yes, it's not as strong if a Bellisarius, Daeyang, and a Shocker lineup, but it still is going to be usable. If you put it in there and you've got better stats, you're going to get value out of it. I actually really like Victory. I think it's one of the better ones people are underestimating for this. And just to remind you, it's a turn-based skill. It's every 9 seconds. So this is 100% guaranteed. It just happens, right? And when you look at the bottom one, you've got Shadow Chaser. This is an okay fulfill, if you want to say, like a filling slot adornment. Why? It allows you to launch a normal attack, and your next instance of damage, which is just 1 instance of damage, is going to get increased by 20%. So as you can see, it's okay to use in the early phase, but I would not invest too much into the Shadow Chaser because you're going to find way better ones like the Victory one, for example, even the Resistance, and then Rally and the Chain Slayer. So these are the ones that I would mainly go for on there for your account. So now we've gone through all the adornments. We've technically gone down from all of the mounts. We've gone through all of the signet rings. We've gone through all of the gems on all the different types of units that you can use. And as you guessed it, we have gone through all of the different types of formations, even though we have unfortunately not included William the Conqueror this time. But you never know, in the future he might be added into the next formation, which is really cool. Maybe right now we don't have the puzzle pieces, but in the future you might have the puzzle pieces. And that is technically what I would consider the ultimate guide to Tactician Cavalry. So with all of that said, I want to say a big shout out to you guys. Comment down below if you've got any questions for watching all the way through this. And on top of it, let me run down one quick summary for all the information that we've gone through. So the very first thing is Hannibal, a Shocker, a Justinian. First ever lineup you're able to get, a Shocker and Justinian through the Mightiest Governor event in Season 1, Hannibal through your Legendary Advent Wheel. Then later on, the big upgrades is starting to become Bellisarius, a Shocker with a Justinian. This is really good control immunity, big damage output with big survivability through Justinian. If you want to go down the Daenyang route, you can. I do believe she is a better upgrade than Justinian, since she is also reducing damage, not as strong as a Justinian did, but Daenyang makes up for that by transferring attributes to your Bellisarius and to your Ashoka to make their DPS more effective. This is the exact same for Bellisarius, Daenyang, and Hannibal. The main difference for this formation, though, they're going to be able to shred your stats with the Hannibal in the back. And this is one thing that we need to finish off on compared to everything in the Tactician Cavalry. Where are they good? Well, if you pick up the Tactician Cavalry, you'll be surprised. They're actually good everywhere. Tactician Cavalry are normally one of the main units used in open field, and many people, even some of the top spenders, still use them in rally scenarios because you're able to actually obviously steal stats from the unit that you're fighting right now. That unit might go to someone else, meaning they get an easier time, and you've got extra stats to kill the next person. So it's a really cool way that even in rallies, this is a go-to match. Is it as strong as the Lubu Warrior Cavalry match? No, but it has its utility compared to a glass cannon play role in the game. So with all of that said, you know what to do. Smash like, comment, and subscribe. That is everything I can give you for the ultimate Tactician Cavalry guide for 2026 in Age of Empires Mobile. If I've missed any information, I do apologize to all of you guys, but put it down in the comment section down below, and if you've got more information to provide, maybe I will pin the #1 comment from you guys to the top. So until the next one, stay safe, stay sneaky, peace out.